From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host, Sean Fazende. Riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast is Andre Johnson
Jr.
You know the JR. Don't forget the JR before we get into today's content. Be sure to like, share, rate, review. If you are watching us on YouTube, please do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. And today, it's Tuesday, not a normal day we do a podcast, but we're doing it today because it is OTA day number one. I'm not trying to rhyme like that. It just keeps flowing out, you know? It's just...
Sometimes when you got bars, you got bars.
Sometimes you just got it. But anyway, Saints complete OTA number one. I was there. It was a very hot day. It was a very bright day. It was very sunny out there today. It was a good overall... workout, I thought, to start the OTA session. Remember, they start this week. This was their very first time as a team getting out on the field together, or they were able to get out on the field together. In years past, we would see this first week would be like OTA number 3 we'd go on the first week. But this one, OTA number 1, we were able to watch it. It was about an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, 2 hours, somewhere in that range. Maybe it was closer to 2 hours. Of what we were able to watch for OTA number 1. So I'm gonna skip the preambles and the hellos and all that because we've had a day today. So we're gonna get right into it.
I was out my bed at 7 a.m. today.
How about that's early? That's early for Andre Johnson.
Yeah,
he doesn't have kids yet. He don't have kids yet.
I don't believe in getting up till 11.
Anyway, I know the viewers and those listening to the pod, they want to know all about OTA day number 1. It was a pretty good practice, no doubt about it, with some interesting developments that happened today. So that's where we're going to go with the big picture.
A lot of interesting things, like you said, coming out of camp, from Taysom Hill to Derek Carr to the secondary. But we feel like it's only right to start at the position group that we've been talking about essentially for the last 2 months, and that's the offensive line. Because we've been putting out our projective offensive line grouping, so to speak, and the assumption a lot of time has been that Trevor Penning would be at the left tackle. But today on day 1 of OTAs, Trevor Penning was at the right tackle spot. Taliese Fuaga was on the left. A bit of a flip from what we initially thought it would be when they drafted Fuaga. So what was your take when you saw that?
Well, it was interesting. It was one of the first things we were looking for when we got out there. Where is Trevor Penning going to be, and what group is he going to be with? Wasn't hard to miss him. He's one of the biggest guys on the team. You look over at the offensive line group, and there he is at right tackle with the first team. Do not lose sight of that. Do not lose sight of the fact that this young man was a left tackle last year, started, was benched, and was demoted to the point where he wasn't even tackle eligible by the end of the season last year. So now he is back with the first team, but on the opposite side at right tackle. What does this say? Well, it's pretty obvious. The clean slate is real.
Yep.
The clean slate is real. That's important. Fresh set of eyes. They see this big, powerful, 6'7", 330-pound offensive lineman. They don't grow on trees. We're not going to give up on them yet. I've said this time and time again. The Saints have not given up on Trevor Penning. That's point number 1. Point number 2, they felt like right tackle, not left tackle, not left guard, but right tackle is where he's going to settle in. Clearly, the objective is simple. You want to get your best 5 guys up front. And right now, Dennis Allen was very clear and very open and very honest when he said 2 out of the 5 we know. 3 out of the 5 we don't because of youngsters, because of where they're going to play. And so that was also an admission of, yes, we love Taliese Fuaga, but he is still a rookie. Yes, they haven't given up on Trevor Penning, but he obviously, third year, still has to come together for him. And then obviously at left guard, today it was Nick Saldiveri, and it was Shane Lemieux, not Lucas Patrick. We'll see if that changes. So I think the left guard spot is probably a storyline to watch going forward. But to me, like I said, it goes to show you that the clean slate, they were being real. There's still a long way to go. This could still change because make no mistake about it. Trevor Penning is a natural left tackle in college, or was a natural left tackle in college. Taliese Fuaga was a natural right tackle in college. Now they're at the pros, and they're flipping. That's a huge, step, and that's a huge conversion for 2 out of your 5 young players to switch sides. Now, if it works out, they're geniuses. But I will say this. I like the coaching staffs. I love the overall feeling the offensive staff is giving me with this attention to detail, this hands-on, very instructional sort of approach to teaching and educating and getting what needs to be done hands-on with the players. I felt like there was a little bit of an aging coach, offensive line coach last year. That just kind of felt like he didn't really want to deal with a raw player like Trevor Penning or put the work in to get him. And Penning was he was one of the ones that it just wasn't catching on for him. So it was kind of a two-way sort of whatever type situation. But now you have a guy that clearly understands he's at a crossroads in his career and an offensive staff that's willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and putting back with the first team. So don't lose sight of that he's at right tackle, yes, which is significant, hugely significant, but also back with the first team. Don't know if he's going to stay there, but to me, those are two huge developments for Trevor Penning, and his future may still very well be here in New Orleans.
I like it. I like that they're trying it out because really at this point of the year, you don't have anything to lose at all.
Right.
Penning obviously has played the majority of his time on the left. Fuaga spent his time in college playing on the right. Let's say for whatever reason this doesn't work out, you just go back to what they're most comfortable with. Penning goes back to the left, Fuaga goes out to the right. And like you said, if it does work, if Fuaga is more comfortable on the left, if Penning is better on the right, then you're geniuses. And what I'm interested to watch during this time is just how quick they pick it up, because we mentioned that you've talked to some Saints offensive linemen in the past, and they said it's not necessarily outside-inside that's the difficult shift to make. It's from one side to the other. And Fuaga, after he got drafted, maybe he just hadn't stepped into it yet, he said it's pretty easy. It's like, driving on the other side of the road. To me, it's seeming more like if you're a basketball player and you shoot your jumpers with your right, it's like switch it over and shoot your jumpers with the left. You're still shooting a jumper.
Yeah.
You're still playing tackle, but it's a little bit different when it comes to learning how to do it and just getting acclimated to being on a different side. And I'm interested to see if Penning and if Fuaga can figure that out. They're both young. You don't have a lot to erase in there when you talk about their experience, because it's Fuaga's first year and Penning's third year.
And Penning, 7 starts in his career.
Exactly. So it's not like you're making the switch 50 starts in their career.
Right. And this is not etched in stone. I still think there's going to be some mixing and some matching and some trial and some error that's going to last well into training camp, into the preseason, probably into the regular season, because you got to get this right for this offense to work, because you invested so much in this new offense, this new offensive coordinator. You got to get up front to be aligned, in sync, cohesive, because it's a very unique style of blocking that they do, and it's obviously where it all starts to make what is the beauty of this offense really and truly go. So that's a interesting. It's not interesting. It's a very big development for the Saints. I mean, you talk about your first round pick at right tackle is now playing left, and your first round pick from a few years ago that was drafted to be your left tackle cornerstone is now on the right, and we'll see who the best 5 ultimately end up being. And don't lose sight of the fact that left guard is not established. Shane Lemieux and Nick, I think the team would love to have Nick Saldiveri emerge as the left guard, but Lucas Patrick will eventually be put into that mix. I promise you that.
That's who I circled on my list when we were talking about the guys who practiced today. I circled Nick Saldiveri because I thought that it was interesting that he was getting a lot of run at that position, because last year, for whatever reason, they thought he wasn't ready. He was a healthy scratch in almost every game. This year, first day of OTAs, he's out there and he's playing left tackle. And I think this team really wants to know what they can get out of Nick Saldiveri.
Stay tuned. That offensive line is a work in
About
progress.
it all
it's not a
spring,
finished
all
product, but enjoy the ride. That's all I can say.
Something
all right, what do we
else
have
we'll
next?
be talking about all spring and summer is a guy by the name of Taysom Hill. That was the big thing when Klint Kubiak got hired as offensive coordinator, a big creative mind. And the first thing a lot of people thought of was, oh my goodness, how is he going to use Taysom Hill? And today, Taysom Hill seemed like he was practicing with the fullbacks and the tight ends for the majority of the practice. And Dennis Allen even said, don't expect to see him get a lot of reps at quarterback right now, because he feels like he doesn't want to take those snaps away from his 2 young guys, and he really wants to see what Taysom can work in kind of a Kyle Juszczyk type of role.
Yeah, this is the first time we've ever seen him in an OTA or training camp practice. Taysom Hill I'm talking about. As much as we've seen him do a lot of things in games, a lot of things in different scenarios, we've never seen him actually practice individual drills with the fullbacks at OTAs. So that's new. That's new, and they also have Xander Horvath and Adam Prentice. But we have told you guys, all you had to do was watch the San Francisco 49ers, which I'm sure you all have watched a lot of them. They were in the Super Bowl season ago. Just how much they value that position, how much they place a premium on that position, when that position has become an endangered species to other coordinators and other systems. So we immediately made the connection. This was a few months ago we talked about. Could he be the Kyle Juszczyk? DA acknowledged that, but rightfully, I might add, added more. It's Juszczyk plus. He can do the things Juszczyk does, as getting out to the flat, running routes, however they use him in that regard. Can he be the lead blocker? And as a fullback, I'm sure he can get better in that regard, but he can also run a 4.4. He can also run a QB power. He can also throw touchdown passes. He can also run the quarterback draw and the read option and, you know, be the punt protector and everything else that Taysom Hill does. If I'm Klint Kubiak, I am ecstatic to work with the skill set like Taysom Hill. If you've got that type of creative mind and an already versatile positionless type offense as it is, to have essentially a positionless type player that can do everything, to me, that should be one of the more exciting things. And I thought it was interesting that day one, individual drills early in practice, he was doing fullback, 7-on-7 in team. He was doing more of the wide tight end, traditional type stuff. Taysom's going to be a hybrid. And yes, he's not going to play quarterback in OTAs and training camp and probably preseason, but make no mistake about it, DA said it. When they asked if they're going to eliminate the quarterback run from the playbook, he just simply said, nope, not doing that, because you know what? He's not stupid. It works. So Taysom Hill is still going to be Taysom Hill this year.
Yeah, when it comes to an and one player, and when I say and one, I mean 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 4th and goal from the 1. You don't have a better player on your roster as an and 1 type player than Taysom Hill. We saw it so much last year with the option plays, the quarterback power plays, the dive plays from Taysom. It's very hard for defenses to stop. So I don't expect that to come out the offense, but it may be taken down a little bit. We'll see. You know, obviously, Carr and Taysom did a lot of switching last season. I still remember the Detroit game we were at where they would boo Carr, cheer for Taysom, and it seemed like that was happening a lot because those two just kept coming in and coming out. And it's hard on a quarterback, too, from a Derek Carr perspective, to keep coming in and coming out and disrupting your rhythm. So I'm interested to see how often Taysom will be used at quarterback. And it seems like if they're working on doing new things with him at the other positions, like getting him involved as a fullback and having him do things that Kyle Juszczyk did, who, by the way, the first offensive play of the Super Bowl, if I remember correctly, it went to Juszczyk. Yeah. One of the most important plays for the Niners down the stretch was a pass to Kyle Juszczyk. Yeah. They get him involved in that offense a lot, and putting Taysom in that role, he could be even more dynamic than Juszczyk. And then still keeping him in those short yardage situations. And, I mean, just because he's not – I like the decision to not have him taking quarterback reps right now, because right now you got to know who's going to come out on top between Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler, and you don't need you know Taysom can do what he does at quarterback.
And those guys need the reps. It's a new system for everybody. Those guys need the reps, as many reps as possible. We're going to get to Derek Carr tomorrow because we talked to him quite a bit today. But those guys need the reps, and some guys are, you know, you got to get as many repetitions as possible in any new system with any new verbiage, on the same page. So yeah, I think it's smart to just eliminate that from the preseason training camp OTA portion, because it's always there when you need it. And I'll be very curious to see when you add up the totals at the end of the season, provided everyone's healthy, how close Taysom Hill's carries are this year from maybe in some past seasons.
And speaking of those guys needing reps, you were out there. If there was one guy who stood out to you, it didn't surprise me because I saw it last year, but who would you say is your OTA day one MVP?
It's a name we talked about a lot. Wait for it. His name is Jake Haener. How about that? Andre Johnson Jr.'s guy, a guy we both said is not going to be counted out in the backup quarterback battle. It is one practice. It's their first day together, but my guy knows how to take over a practice. I'll just say that it happened all training camp last year. It happened The first day of OTAs this year, he looked confident, he looked comfortable, he looked decisive, he looked poised. He just had a good aura, good body language about him today. He saw the field really well. He hit Michael Jacobson during 7-on-7 on a basic kind of square in route, and you heard the coaches yell, "That's a great throw, Jake Haener." It was just everyone heard it because the way he was just he looked off to the left, went back to his right. He hit A.T. Perry in that same period. Throw got away from him a little bit, but sometimes when you got a good aura in your quarterback, your guys make plays for you. A.T. Perry made probably one of the catches of practice, climbs the ladder, goes up, kind of tips it to himself on kind of a backside square, ran a backside basket for about 20 yards. Then in team drill, he executed a bootleg drag to Dallin Holker, who had 4 receptions on the day.
Okay.
Dallin Holker, the tight end, to perfection, going to his left. It was a fantastic play. And then dropped a dime in the final team period on a slot fade throw to Chris Olave. And it was one of those, a great, well-placed throw, but it still required a very good catch, a lot of concentration. Chris Olave was able to come down with it. The defender was on him, got the feet down, probably a 30 or 40-yard game. And then he threw another dime during the end of 7-on-7. It was only in completion of practice where went up to Equanimous St. Brown, had a step on it. The ball was well placed. DB made a nice play to bat the ball away. So Jake Haener made a very good first impression again. Now, for all the Jake Haener fan club guys out there, I like him. I've shared with you the intel from Saints personnel who have talked to me directly about Jake Haener, the impression he made as a rookie. But he's done this before. I need to see it translate into a game setting. I've seen him take over practice before. This is 3 or 4 times last year. We left training camp practice being like, best player on the field was Jake Haener. But when it got to the game setting, wasn't the same. So I think Jake Haener has got to translate that more. I do think him being in the second year, not dealing with all the rookie stuff, certainly helped. He just seemed a little more confident and comfortable. And hopefully he can just keep that trajectory going. As for the Spencer Rattler crew, fanboys and all that stuff, I don't want to say that in a negative way. I think it's right to be a Spencer Rattler fan. Don't lose your mind right now. But he didn't have his best stuff. He had a really good rookie minicamp, but he didn't have his best stuff today. Really struggled in 7-on-7. He was high, and it was like his passes were too much velocity on every throw. He got picked off of a tip pass by Faion Hicks. He should have got picked off again on the very next play where he was late through his progressions to get back on the backside over the middle. DB jumped around, linebacker jumped around, maybe in a safety. Number 44, whoever that is. Let me see. Number 44. Let me look at that real quick. 44 is Isaiah Stallbird, linebacker, undrafted rookie out of South Dakota State. He should have picked him off and went the other way for 6. So it's like he had a little bit of extra energy or a little bit of, it was a little too much today in the 7-on-7 during team. He had a nice throw to Bub Memes on an over route. And that was probably his best play of practice. But in the final team period, he tried to hit Bub Memes again on the slot fade, overthrew him. Again, just a little too much on everything when it came to his day-to-day. He'll have better days. It's his first practice. It's his first practice in a team setting with the entire team. It's okay. Do not, because I had a lot of people reacting to the tweet about Spencer Rattler, how he struggled a little bit during 7-on-7 when I tweeted it out. I got some upset people at me with that. I am pulling for Spencer Rattler because I want this to be a competition for QB2. And make no mistake about it, it's going to be a competition, and Jake Haener's up for the challenge. And hopefully Spencer Rattler is as well because he'll be able to respond. Hopefully tomorrow we won't be able to see it for OTA number 2. So Spencer Rattler, not quite as good as rookie minicamp, not quite as good today as he was rookie minicamp. Jake Haener, he was impressive. He's done it before, though. So long way to go, but those were the first impressions at OTAs.
Yeah, one thing about Jake the Snake Haener, a lot of times athletes like to pretend like they don't see a lot of the stuff on social media, but you don't have to be very dialed into Saints social to realize that a lot of people have been sending out QB1 every time a Spencer Rattler clips drops. We see it under the comments of almost every one of our videos when he comes up. The Saints fans have loved Spencer Rattler, and this seems like it was Jake Haener saying, hey, don't forget about me. I'm here too. I was drafted last year. I was mentored by Derek Carr. I had a good training camp last year. So Jake Haener, I'm sure, came out a little jacked today and ready to prove and show people, hey, if we talking QB2, I got to be in that conversation, and I got to be at the top of that conversation. Now, like you said, he did it last year. Training camp MVP, as I keep saying. He got into the preseason, and he looked like a rookie at times. He made some good throws, but at times he looked like a rookie. So he's got to keep this energy throughout mini camp, OTAs, training camp, all of that. And when it gets into preseason, he can't look like a rookie. You've got to see that step up. You've got to see the progression and the improvement heading into year 2 of his season or his career.
And maybe that's just what it was. There was just a smoothness to just kind of everything about him today. He just seemed comfortable. It just seemed comfortable. And again, not having to deal with the rookie year and the getting drafted and the rookie mini camp and figuring everything out. And I think he handled that incredibly well. But you come back for year 2. And you know everything about that kind of stuff. The stuff. It's not even always about football. Finding your house, knowing the city, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I thought he had a good day. I thought he had the best day of anyone at practice today. But he wasn't the only one that had a good day. And I just thought overall it was a pretty good workout for the Saints. It was well attended. About 90% of the guys. I'm not sure if you have the list right there, but just a few of the guys that missed today: Kamara, Marshawn Lattimore, Tano Passanio, Shepard, Jamal Williams. I'm missing one or two names. And there were obviously a couple guys that missed because of injuries, but there were guys that were present, still dealing with injuries, but they were still present. So it was kind of two different columns there. But nonetheless, I thought it was a pretty good showing in terms of the people that were there, and I thought it was a pretty good showing in terms of what we saw on the field.
Definitely. And as I was listening to Dennis Allen talk at the end, one of the things that jumped out to me is when he started talking about nickel corner. And he mentioned, just because you're the nickel corner and not one of the starting 2 cornerbacks, that doesn't mean you're a backup. He said in about 70% of the defenses they run, you've got your nickel corner out on the field. So he considers the nickel corner a starting guy. And if assuming they keep Marshawn Lattimore, DA went into a little more detail about Marshawn today. So assuming that Marshawn is on the field, which it looks like he will be come the fall, you're going to have Marshawn Lattimore, Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor, and then you're traded up to draft Kool-Aid McKinstry. We know Marshawn's going to start. I don't see Paulson Adebo after the year he had last year moving out. So you've got Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry. Kool-Aid didn't play much in the slot in college. And one thing about Dennis Allen, he said, you got to keep in mind about Alontae. Alontae did play the slot a good chunk of last season, but Alontae was also a second-year player last season. It was his first year ever playing in the slot. Yeah. So he understood there would be a bit of a learning curve there, and come the end of the season, he was really liking what he saw out of Alontae. So that cornerback situation, especially once Kool-Aid, because he's one of the people you mentioned who was there, but he wasn't participating because he's still getting over an injury. Once Kool-Aid can get on the field and show why the Saints drafted or traded up in the draft to get him, I think it's going to be a very interesting situation to see who takes those cornerback spots.
Yeah, I think that might be the premier starting position competition, the nickel position. Once training camp gets here, if it's Kool-Aid versus Alontae, we'll see who emerges. It's an important position. They didn't do any nickel work today. It was all first down, a lot of base stuff. So, yeah, that's certainly something to watch in addition to what inevitably they will have to sort out up front on the offensive line. But I thought Dennis Allen was pretty straightforward today when he said we got 2 out of 5 that we know, 3 out of 5 we don't. That's real. Yeah. That's real. So we'll see how the offensive line shakes out. All right. Just before we get out of here, I want to just share a couple notes that I had. Receptions today, and this is from 2 team periods and a 7-on-7 period. So 3. So 3, legitimate throwing sessions. Dallin Holker and Chris Olave both tied with the lead with 4 receptions. Michael Jacobson, I gotta do a little more studying on this guy because he popped up a lot. He is out of Iowa State, 6'7", 244, 27 years old. Again, this is what I mean by second and third team reps when you have a quarterback or a competition there, it kind of elevates everyone. This is like I wasn't even looking at. All of a sudden, he had 3 catches today. Nice catches as well. A.T. Perry had the great catch, as I said. Taysom Hill had one early in practice. And then Bub Means had a nice catch from Spencer Rattler as well on that over route. Also want to say Jordan Mims had a couple nice runs. He got really good vision, number 33 for the Saints. Kendre Miller had a fumble. Anthony Orji was the one that forced it. Number 47 was on the recovery. That is Khalik Hudson. So he was one of the ones that they had brought in. At linebacker was able to recover the fumble. So a few just kind of here and there plays that we saw. They spent a lot of time punting today. It was a long period punting, about a little over 7 minutes. And I got to say, one position group from a coaching standpoint that I didn't realize until it was gone, until I didn't realize how much they were missing until I saw it today. The wide receiver room, the level of detail and instruction and precision Keith Williams is handing to these receivers and giving these receivers rep in and rep out is just it's a 180 difference from what it was a season ago. He's not the same personality as CJ, but he's very hands-on like Curtis Johnson was. So I thought, all these guys have stood out from the offensive staff, but particularly I was able to key in on him today. I thought there was very good instruction from him, a lot of detail. And I go back to that Rams game, the Saints-Rams. The level of precision the Rams receivers played with versus the level of precision the Saints receivers played with, night and day. You can get that precision back in this wide receiver core. Maybe you got something with these guys that play wide receiver for the Saints.
Yeah, the best time to be a wide receiver trying to make a roster or even a tight end trying to make a roster is when there is a quarterback battle going on because you don't have your backups just trying to figure out the system or just coasting through because they've been here for a few years. Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener want to win this QB2 battle.
Absolutely.
They want to position themselves to where if, and knocking on wood,
right,
if something happens to Derek Carr, they can step in and be a starter in the NFL. So every rep they take is going to mean something. And it always seems like you have a few guys who stand up in camp because you've got a backup quarterback that's balling. I know last year 2 guys that jumped out to me were Lucas Kroll.
Yeah,
I think it was Shaq Davis. It was the big wide receiver.
Yeah.
So I don't think either of them wound up making the team, but they had some pretty nice plays in preseason. I know Shaq had a big catch in the Chargers preseason game.
Kroll
too.
Ended up in Denver and was playing.
Yeah, and Kroll, Sean Payton. Yeah. If the Saints cut a player, they might find themselves in Denver eventually. The way Sean Payton operates, and Lucas Kroll made his way to Denver, and he really impressed. And the reason he impressed last year was because Jake Haener was playing so well. So like Jacobson that you mentioned earlier today, I think there may be a few of them the way that Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler are going to have to play to win that QB battle.
Should be fun. The next time we'll get to see him is next Tuesday. I'll be there. Should be a fun one. Maybe we'll see some development or some new attendees. Maybe we'll see a new phase of the offense and what they're calling and what they're doing. So it should be fun. So it was a hot one out there today, but I was glad I went. It was a good time. It was a good first day of work for OTAs. We'll be back on Wednesday talking on this podcast once again. So I think that's it. Anything else for us today?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Andre Johnson Jr. is good. I am good. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.